Righto, thank you for everybody back. Have we got a quorum?
Got the people that count.
Hey, yes, we are quorate. We are now dealing with item 10, budget update report. This will be exciting. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Pramod Nair, the manager of the Group Financial Planning team, and next to me I have Jamie Sinclair, Chief Corporate Services Officer from Watercare. I'll provide a brief overview on this item and then hand over to Jamie to provide a bit more detail before handing over to you for questions. The purpose for this report is for the governing body to consider Watercare's request for additional capital spend in this financial year. The annual budget for the current year approved a capital program of $715 million. Currently, Watercare are forecasting to spend around $812 million by 30th of June 2023, around a $97 million increase on the approved budget. Included in this spend is around $36 million of shovel-ready projects, which are funded directly by central government. In terms of funding the remainder of the increase, Watercare are expecting some additional revenue above what was budgeted in the annual plan. A balance of up to $50 million of additional debt could be required in the current financial year, and that would impact the group debt position. However, this additional debt has been considered by the Treasury team, and their advice is can be accommodated within. In terms of the consequential OPEX cost, including additional interest costs for next year, these will be covered by Watercare's revenues, and it also doesn't add to the operating gap that the council is looking at mitigating for the next annual plan year. In terms of not approving this request, if Watercare do not get this approval, they would need to slow down delivery of their current program, which could impact the costs related to delivering those projects when they do get up and running and started again. In terms of how Watercare are tracking with delivery, as at the end of April 2023, Watercare's provisional results show actual spend to date of $620 million against a budget of $600 million. And most of this year, they have been tracking around that 100% delivery rate, and now starting to get over that as momentum is picking up in terms of delivery of their program. So I'll hand over to Jamie now to provide any further detail before taking questions.
I'll just have a short question first. Watercare pays its interest on its own.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay, just in case you thought it's putting our interest bill up, it's theirs. Okay, thank you.
So the operating costs and capital costs for Watercare are covered by their revenues, which include the water and wastewater charges as well as the IGC charges and any other revenue that they generate.
Kia ora. Thanks, Pramod. Kia ora, Your Worship, councillors, kia ora koutou. So, as mentioned, I'm Jamie Sinclair, the Chief Corporate Services Officer for Watercare. I'm happy just to elaborate a bit further on the paper and the request for Watercare for the councillors to consider approving an increased CapEx spend for the year and consequential short-term headroom for the rest of this financial year. I guess just starting off thinking about the baseline principle from a Watercare perspective is that we really want to ensure that we continue to deliver our AMP and the programs and projects that are important to Auckland and to Aucklanders and the resilience of our water and wastewater network and system. Some of the projects we've talked about today as well, most notably I suppose the Central Interceptor. And if you get a chance, I'd encourage you to have a look on our social media sites where we've put a bit of a snapshot on the latest progress and sort of highlights from the Central Interceptor program. Another milestone coming up this week as we head towards Keithay Park and 6 kilometres of tunnelling for the main tunnel boring machine. In terms of the FY23 financial year and the AMP and the annual budget, we were expecting to spend, or had in our plan there to spend $715 million. What we found is through a combination of factors, including our own detailed assessment of our asset management plan, the phasing, the costing, and the scoping, as well as the opportunity to take direct funding from the government on the shovel-ready projects, some impacts ongoing in relation to the drought, and actually some new impacts relating to the flood, which I'll talk about in a moment, as well as an increased emphasis on strategy and planning. We now expect to spend in the order of up to $812 million for the financial year. As mentioned in the CapEx prioritisation workshop on the 10th of May, we have spent a lot of time working on understanding our program and projects included in the AMP and rebaselining those effectively to give us a much greater confidence of our asset plan and the deliverability, if you like, of our plan over the coming years. And that's really important, particularly, as you would have heard in that session, our step up in CapEx over the next couple of years really moves towards $1 billion next year, and it stays at that level for some years thereafter. That means we need to be prepared, we need to be planning, and we need to be doing the work up front to get those in the best possible position to deliver. In terms of, from that assessment, in terms of the flood response, this year there will be only a marginal or minimal CapEx impact. However, looking forward to next year, we are estimating that up to $80 million of CapEx will be required. To date, we've got about 188 issues, whether they be assets or land assets to address, whether through remediation, repair or replacement. So we are working very hard to confirm all of that work over the coming year, and that's obviously $80 million before any insurance. Whilst the 812 million projected is higher than the LTP or the annual plan, we do believe this is the right trajectory for where Watercare is heading and building into our program for the years ahead. We don't want to have to defer projects or slow projects down. We've carefully considered our project base to see where we can do that, and we feel that any further deferral will impact our delivery and also impact the outcomes that Aucklanders expect of us. Now I'll turn to funding. We were expecting for this year that funding for this additional CapEx would be covered by additional revenues. We were expecting additional IGCs, infrastructure growth charges and water and wastewater revenue, even higher than the annual plan position that council has. That hasn't eventuated. The infrastructure growth charges, particularly, there's been a slowing down of that sector, and the connections have been lower than forecast. They have been picking up, interestingly, in the last couple of months, but we still think we'll be under budget for the year. And in terms of volumetric charges, whilst slightly higher than the council annual plan, we were forecasting higher revenues, but the wet weather has dampened demand somewhat. As part of this, as a result, we do need additional debt headroom for the remainder of the financial year, up to $50 million. Obviously, that number will fluctuate as we pay down debt when we receive cash and have the ongoing arrangement with Council Treasury. I'll just reiterate again that this does not impact Council's budget position. Kia ora, I think perhaps I'll pause there and just happy to take any pātai or questions on the paper.
Councillor Turner, please.
Yeah, thank you. Some of these questions, I'm sorry, you've given me briefings as the lead, and because I'm so used to so many noughts behind every figure, now I had 500 million in my head, not 50, I'm sorry. So that made me do a lot of thinking. It'll
be a different conversation, Councillor.
Yeah, okay. So I think maybe the importance of my questions isn't very much. I think I'll leave it there for now. Thank you.
I think it's just to emphasise two things about this. They cover their interest costs, and this doesn't impact the size of the hole we're filling this year.
That's correct.
Okay, there's two things. You've absolutely got, everyone got that in their mind? Righto. And should the government swipe Watercare office, we'll get it back anyhow. Is that right?
Correct. Or in terms of where the debt moves to, if the debt would move with Watercare.
Yeah, okay. So it's relatively low risk for us. Okay. Any further questions? You got a further question there, Councillor Turner, right?
Yeah, just, there's no clarity though on what is actually moving with Watercare or what isn't, is from my view. We don't know if they're taking all the debt or half the debt, if they're going to pay it off immediately or over time, correct?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that there's still much more clarity that we'd all like, I think, on those points. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't matter so much with 50 million, Mr. Chair.
I'm pretty sure I can do a deal that gets rid of a bit more debt. Councillor Lee?
Yes, thank you. That the additional debt funding can be accommodated by Auckland Council and does not materially impact Auckland Council's overall debt position or treasury risk. Is that because in the past Watercare was in effect self-contained, its borrowing was underwritten by its own water and wastewater income, and the situation is somewhat different, but in terms of attributing the debt, it will still be in effect contained within Watercare, as it were.
Yes, that's correct, Councillor.
Thank you.
It doesn't have a huge impact on us directly. Councillor Dalton?
No, I'm okay, thank you.
Do I have a mover for this, please? Okay, this is the Turner Walker show. Yeah. Dare I move it? Or I'm going to propose, move that, put the motion rather. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
The contrary, carried. Well done. Now, the next